This is Sunday Recap, the weekly edition of the Grace Bible Church podcast, where we talk about life and faith based off of our sermon this past Sunday. For more sermon recordings, for recordings of our podcast, for more, I'm lost, bgrace.org/podcast. For more information about Grace Bible Church, visit bgrace.org. I'm Joey Cologne. This week, the pastor whose dog is barking again, but wasn't barking for like an hour before we just started push and go.
I'm Chris Webster, the assistant pastor of media and messages.
Jim Wilson, assistant pastor of insurance, finances, fixed the building. I don't know. Make a list.
I'm Dave McMurray, preaching pastor, and Birds tweeting outside pastor.
Yeah, birds tweeting is way more pleasant than just the dog barking. But we have just embraced it being weird and different and changed and whatnot. And so yesterday after church, we did a little, what did you guys call it? Hang out in the lobby, but on the stage?
Hanging in the lobby.
Hanging in the lobby.
Yeah.
We did that after
Hanging
church.
in the lobby and the stage.
And we got a lot of interaction in real time, I guess, on the chats of YouTube and the Facebook. And so I figured I would throw that on this stream. So I put it in the stream. I think right now all it says is the chat is waiting for new messages. And it says it like 100 times next to Jim. But I don't know. We're just figuring things out. We don't really know what we're doing. If you ever thought we knew what we were doing, you were wrong, probably, most likely. Good morning and God bless you from Lewis. All right, Luis, we got it. That's working. The chat's working. That's cool. Sweet. I'm glad that's working.
Nice.
Maybe I'll write back. Good.
No
Thanks,
sound.
Joseph. You saved me. When I typed good morning into the chat box, M is my auto mute button for all of ours. So we're just figuring things out, guys. We really don't know what we're doing. So I'm not gonna reply in the chat anymore. I'm gonna leave that up to the rest of you because if I push the M key, I'll just type, but I won't touch the M key. If I touch the M key, it's gonna ruin us and mute us. Does that sound better, everybody? It's back. All right, cool. Well, thanks. I love this chat box. Eunice, if you're watching, I'll show you how to use that on Sunday. It's a cool little new feature. I guess before we start, why don't we just check in? I know some people got a check-in yesterday. Jim wasn't with us, so he didn't get a check-in. We did the hangout in the lobby. So maybe, Jim, can you tell us how your lobby has been? And then any new updates from anyone else before we get into the sermon?
Yeah, I missed the how your lobby has been question. What are we supposed to answer to that one?
I don't know. What did we say? Your favorite snack during working from home, your favorite movie that you've watched most recently. I don't know. What else is that? I don't know. It's just a check-in. People want to know how you are, Jim.
Well, it's been a couple of weeks, but yeah, the Peanut Butter Falcon was a really good movie. Go find it. It's worth
I've heard
watching.
about it.
Yeah.
Is that a movie? The Peanut Butter Falcon?
Peanut Butter
Yeah,
Falcon.
with Shia LaBeouf.
It sounded like your snack answer as well, so I was confused.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. And it's a staple of lunch.
The Peanut Butter Falcon.
Yes. Peanut butter dove for a snack, peanut butter falcon for a movie.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, if you're in the chat, why don't you do an over or under for Dave having to run into his house for rain? So over or under 45 minutes. Y'all could tell me what you think. Any other things before we start? I don't know. Like I said, we're figuring things out. We're trying new things. Bear with us. And yeah, thanks for telling us that you couldn't hear us in the chat. That was helpful. Because we would have just kept going and it would have been like... like last week, we're recording locally, so if things don't work out online, hopefully we'll get you an audio version. I know last week there were some hiccups. I guess some people's audio was cutting in and out more than others, but we're all doing our best to stay either near our Wi-Fi hotspots or be plugged in. So far, the quality looks really good on my end, so I'm just going to keep rolling with it. Chris, Dave, Jim, anything before we start officially?
I still don't understand this whole stream thing, anybody's comments, so don't think I'm rude and ignoring you. I just can't see it. I'm logged in, but I don't see any chat.
It's okay. I don't know. There was
Okay.
chat, and it slowly died down, so I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it's still happening, maybe it's not. I don't know.
I see
You
it.
see it.
It's happening.
Okay. Last thing I saw was Jennifer
Bible
saying,
Church live
so
text
I don't
support."
miss anything. Hooray. Is that the most recent one? Maybe?
Mine, I have an octopus with an R on its head, and it's hey. The chat is waiting for new messages.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the last one was, you can blame Joseph. I'm cool with that. Something.
Okay, well, maybe it
At
was
least
cool for a
it's like-
second, and it's not working so much now. I don't know. I don't know.
Huh.
Cool. Anyways,
Oh,
no worries. Maybe I'll try opening it
worries.
in a browser and see.
Still moving.
because we are listening. Smiley
Yeah.
face. Okay, I see it.
Yep,
Well.
it's working.
Glad you see stuff. All right, I'll let you guys monitor
Yeah.
that then,
Okay.
because I can't really see it. Well, this week,
Got
Dave.
5 raindrops, just for the record.
Uh-oh. Maybe I'm going to lose the... Well, I guess I don't lose. I'm the one who was setting the requirements for over-unders. I didn't actually say what I thought.
Kendrick, Heather, Justin Elise. Okay.
This is going to be the
is-
worst podcast ever.
That's why I said we shouldn't. That's why I said we shouldn't. It's going
What's
to
up?
be great. It's
That's
fun,
right.
though.
I'm good with it. We're going to have fun. We're going to deal with it. We'll just focus more on the sermon points and stuff, but we'll still have fun with it. Well, this week was Praying for All People. This was week 5 of what was a 6 or 7 week series. Now is for sure a 6-week series,
Yeah,
I think.
kind of nailed that down now. Yeah.
Good. I'm
Got one
glad
more week.
Glad we nailed it down now. I wonder if we do reactions in Skype, if they'll show up on the stream. Does it show up on the stream? Ha, 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 ha.
Someone asked if we could turn our heads to talk to each other. But see, I think the problem is we're all displayed in different boxes, right?
Yep.
All right, so
Yep.
Dave, you should.
Hey,
Chris should
guys.
be to your right,
Dave.
I think. And I'm
Hello.
under you.
How are you? Good to
Jim's
see
at an
you.
angle. Yeah, it's great. I figured it out last week, but it took me a while to figure it out. Okay, I'm gonna try and start for reals.
Good luck.
Why are you crying, Chris? It was Joey crying.
It's rough. It's rough. Okay. I think it'd be funny if you guys. Yeah. I did that last week, Jennifer. I did that last week. I think the Brady Bunch thing. So
We need
this
a
week-
media release for my neighbor's house to appear on the podcast.
yeah, probably. You
Okay.
should go get a signature real quick before it rains. Well, this week was week 5 of what is now a 6-week series on prayer. So we'll talk about prayer next week, which is Palm Sunday, and then you'll have a special Easter message probably, and then we'll move into the next series.
Yep.
It's
It's going to be the Easter message. The theme is there is more. Is that right? There is more? Yes, there is more. I knew it was more. and and it's going to be from 1 Corinthians 15, the resurrection passage in 1 Corinthians, and then we're going to do like a whole series in 1 Corinthians after that.
Okay, cool. Not to make you self-conscious, do me a favor, don't do this. just pick a distance. If you get super close, it starts to sound funny.
Okay,
It's so hard because when we're in the office, I can like be like, "Hey, your mic." Okay. This week
coach
was
me more. Where it's hard to coach from a distance.
we're just coaching live, doing it live. All right.
Yes.
Praying for all people. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 1 through 19. Your points were why we pray is mysterious grace from the first 8 verses. For whom we pray, which was every tribe. And that was from 9 through 12. And then what we pray, which is supernatural strength, from verse 13 through 19. Any big picture thoughts why you chose praying for all people? Was it already in the shoot? Did you choose it last minute?
It was already in the shoot, although I did change the title to Praying for Outsiders at the last minute.
Oh,
so I don't know
sorry.
what notes you have. I did change it very last minute, so you probably have something that still says the
Well,
old
I do
title.
have your real stuff. I also have.
Okay.
I was going to the weekly PowerPoint thread instead of looking at your notes because there's so many windows open on my computer. It's killing me. But
Yes. So I turned in my notes on PowerPoint on Saturday with one title, and then the next morning, Sunday morning, right before I preached it, I changed it.
so instead of pray
You're
for
praying
all
for
people, let's pray
outsiders.
for outsiders. Why the change? Just to be more clear, or what do you think?
So usually the last thing I really clarify with the sermon, like kind of the very last thing to get set after I've done all the exegesis, is what I call the fallen condition focus. So trying to crystallize like what is the problem that the text addresses. And so I zeroed in on outsiderness as kind of like the real issue. And so all people just seemed more vague, and outsiders seemed more like the actual problem that we're facing. We're outsiders, and we need Jesus to include us.
Right. Cool.
So, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Any reasons for why you chose Ephesians 3, or just because it's a good prayer passage?
Yeah, so I've continued to follow the prayer guide that we put out for the Lent season. And so what I've been doing is I've been looking ahead. When I planned the whole sermon series, I looked ahead at the prayer passage were coming up and thematically how those were connected, and picked one of those passages. And so that's what I did again this week. So the theme has been kind of a missional prayer and praying for your neighbors, and the gospel being for all nations and all peoples. And then I zeroed in on this probably being the best text for communicating that, because Paul does roll into a prayer. So.
Anyone else have thoughts on big picture for Ephesians 3? Anything big that stood out? No.
I don't think so.
Well, I think the big thing that stands out to me and that I love about Ephesians is Paul spends all this time beginning by giving us the motivation for why we're going to do what we're going to. This is written because it's so clear that this is why you do it, which we'll get to in the end, the third point of Dave's sermon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what you
the
said. I had
structure
some lag, but I'm going to nod my head yes and say, yeah.
Okay. Well,
He was talking about the structure of Ephesians, really focusing on motivation first before it gets to what we do. So it's kind of the classic. You can see this throughout the whole New Testament, but Ephesians probably is most clear, where chapter 1, 2, and 3 are building the motivation, and chapter 3, 4, 5, 6 roll into what we do because of that motivation.
Nice. Cool. All right. I love the birds. Wow. It's going to be so great to try and edit that audio at the end of this. Cool. Well, praying for outsiders, you kind of started with the introduction of getting picked last. Did you actually get picked last, or did you make up that story?
Always true. I never make up a story.
I don't believe it. How often?
Yeah, no,
how
they're always
often did you get picked last?
Oh, dude. I remember one time in particular, and that's what I was referencing in the story, but I think it happened several times. But yeah, it happened a lot.
Oh my gosh, that's so sad. I was noticing how you kind of went quickly past the painful moment, and I was like, oh yeah, I was imagining that your friends dwindling. But listen here, to comfort you, Dave.
Yeah.
I have a theory that the team picking is based on friends and not on skill. So you always
so people just didn't like me. It wasn't really the...
Yeah, so you feel better about that.
That's even better, yeah.
No, but if you weren't like
it's a
best
friend
friends with the
skill
two
thing.
team captains, yeah. Yeah.
It's good. Okay, I feel better. Thank you.
Yeah,
You probably
that would
had-
make me feel better too.
Yes.
Never mind.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Right.
My bad.
Oh goodness, that was good. I appreciate it. No, I think we've all felt like outsiders in some way, whether it being not being friends with the team captain, not being good enough to play for the team captain, or hating the team captain, or whatever the reason being. I think we've all had those experiences of feeling like we're in the outside. C.S. Lewis talked about it in some famous essay. Anybody remember what essay that was? He talked about the inner ring syndrome. He kind of writes it into the story in the book, That Hideous Strength. So it's kind of woven into the narrative of the book, That Hideous Strength. But he actually talks about it very explicitly in an essay as well, that's a very common human desire to be included.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Diane and I had this. Seems like there's all for each of us a time or various times when we felt like outsiders, and I really believe that's the way God uses us, because we've experienced that. It makes it easier for us to invite other people into the circle because we know what it's like to be outside the circle.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, without getting too far into your final points, it's hard to try and skirt around that topic, I guess. That's what the big point is for the whole thing. For your whole sermon.
Yeah. That's okay.
It's good.
You can spoil it.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Okay. You want to move into main points, or you have something? I know, Chris, you want to make the podcast more fun. You got any segment ideas?
Say something funny. Say something funny.
My microphone fell. Say something funny.
See, that's funny.
Dave just has to be Dave, and everyone will love it. We're good. Main point number 1: why we pray mysterious grace. This is the point. Your picture, your illustration with it was the surprise birthday party. You talked a bit about there used to be a lot more. I mean, yeah, I guess a lot more mysterious cults where you had to pass an initiation, etc., to be part of the team. I think a lot of people. I think that still happens a lot. Maybe.
Yeah. I was just, I think, trying to paint the picture that how common that was in the first century. But yeah, I think it still happens for sure now.
Yeah, I had the thought. I loved that that metaphor of the surprise party. I had the thought that kind of, in a lot of ways, we experience this right now, but so much of God's plan and God's goodness is a mystery still. It's this lurking thing that we believe by faith is there, but we don't know exactly, how it's going to show up. And so the gospel was that way for sure in Jesus. But even now, currently, we just wrestle with that. I know his plan and his goodness and his will is at work. But that's the interesting interaction in prayer a lot of times too, of just kind of trying to get into that stream of God. I know you're at work, and I'm going to continue to ask. So I thought that was a great picture for all of Christian life as well.
There's two ways the word mystery is used, and so we typically think of it as the wonder, and like you were just saying, there's still like more mystery. We're still kind of seeing it unfold, but Paul predominantly uses it in we already see it. It's completely unfolded in the gospel. So it's a kind of, that's why I was trying to spend some extra time on that to explain how much of it we already have, how much of it's already revealed.
It's good.
But yeah, there's still more too.
Still more.
There's still more.
There is more.
There is more. Yes, that should be an Easter theme.
We could do We Are More than Conquerors for our kid song this week. What'd you guys think of the kid
perfect.
song? Not you guys, sorry, chat people. What'd you think of the kid song
Chat
this week?
people.
Man, I saw the Tates recorded a video of their family doing it. It was so cool. I thought that was the best.
That was awesome.
I love seeing pictures and videos from people at home during the service because it's so hard to be in the room and not feel like everyone else is there. It's very different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
They also made a special request that I bring back my beard, so I'm in negotiations with my wife on that one.
the Rileys loved it.
Good
You
luck.
gotta wait. I gotta shave too. Gotta wait. CDC says we need to be clean. I'm touching my face because I washed my hands before the podcast.
Okay. Good.
Clean hands can touch the face.
Sorry.
Sounds like a terrible song.
That'll be our kids' song this week. I thought the little girl that did the hand motions on stage with Chris was just adorable.
the young
sweet.
adult.
Yeah.
She's
The young adult, sorry, not little girl. Yes, that grown-up kid.
Oh. Yeah, she was fun.
Total pro. Total pro.
She was fun.
Yes.
Well, mysteries, hidden truth, blah blah blah. Da Vinci Code. Did you talk about that in your
Da Vinci
service?
Code.
Did I just miss it?
I did not. You just found an extra nugget in
Nuggets
my
in your
sermon notes that
notes.
did not come out. Yeah, so Da Vinci Code, the movie, turns it backwards. It makes it like, there's this conspiracy and we're uncovering it and it's a mystery. And if you're smart enough, you can figure it out. Whereas Christianity, totally undoes that and says, no, you don't have to be smart to figure it out. Matter of fact, God reveals it to the humble, not to the smart people that figure things out.
That's good.
In Zeitgeist, there's a YouTube video that was going around for a while. Same kind of thing. It's like conspiracy theory and Christianity's all made up because it has some things in common with other religions. Therefore, it's made up. It's the stupidest thing in the world. But it plays on that kind of like luring us into. Then most conspiracy theories do this. If you're smart, you'll read these conspiracy theory articles and then you'll be the smart guy that's on the inside and has it figured out. It plays on that desire to have the inner knowledge.
I won't say that applies to modern day things, but it might apply to modern day things too. That same idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's not to say that secrets don't exist. It's just there's this hunger in our heart that, that taps into something. If you find yourself constantly attracted to conspiracy theories, well, there's a pride hook in your heart that's tapping into.
Well, and also that goes right along with the outsider thing. That made me think of FOMO, fear of missing out. But we have that temptation even now to think I'm on the outside and everybody else knows something, or I'm on the outside and the insiders really know. And that's an interesting transition to make because, spiritually speaking, that was true before we knew Christ. Now we know Christ, and we have to get out of that habit of there's something secret I don't know. That's what you're saying. Like the core, we know the most important mystery, and so we're not outsiders of the most important truth anymore. So,
yeah, we're included.
That's so good.
And that again, back to the sermon. That's the whole thing. That's what happened to Paul. So. Paul was, he says in Philippians, he's like, really, if we're going to base our inner circleness on an inner circle resume, I've got the best resume, but I consider it all, expletive
Garbage.
deleted.
Rubbish.
Yeah, compared to surpassing what? Knowledge? Surpassing grace, but compared to the cross, compared to Jesus. And so yeah, I thought that was really good. I was really really excited too about the setup with the Jesus Storybook Bible. There's this other really good looking lady that did the story on Sunday. And but the setup was beautiful. Just the story of Paul. This whole, like, he hated Jesus and he hated Jesus' followers, and Jesus humbled him. Like, he was blinded and humbled, and that's how he saw. I mean, there's so many beautiful literary echoes of the whole thing in Paul's story, and then the gospel that he carries on. So.
Yeah, it's really good. I really enjoyed the tie-in with the song and with the Bible story, and putting the effort into you guys now being the children's pastors, children's directors, basically, too, right? So how we integrate that, I think that's something.
Just for the record, we did not fire the children's ministry. We're just trying to reduce the number of circles brought in for germs.
Yeah, basically, the idea being that Dave's already has or doesn't have whatever his family has. So instead of bringing in another family into that mix, we're trying to keep the number of families and circle units. Circle units? That's a really great phrase.
Circle units.
Circle units.
It has been fun doing this stuff with my family, I got to say. As much as, it's been really fun. I enjoyed it. I told them both yesterday, like, it was really fun to get to do that with y'all. So it was cool.
Does it feel like old school ministry, like what it used to be like back in the day when?
Man, I feel like a little bit, but I mean, it's been so long. Honestly, we've been kind of in our own silos. Like when we first started the church, Autumn was doing Sunday school in some other room. Like we weren't side by side,
Yeah.
So, it's really cool to do it side by side.
Every time you look up at the sky like that, I think it's about to downpour on you. That's funny.
There was a bird flying, and I was afraid the bird was going to deliver something to me, but it's okay.
That's good. Some rubbish.
Some rubbish, yes. Scubalon.
So your application for this point was basically ask God that you can have that same type of wonder and mystery of his work, of his grace, and then also to pray and see how you can include outsiders, and mainly because you were an outsider, right? All of us were outsiders first.
Yeah, and I feel like I didn't nail this home as well as I meant to. I did a Facebook Live video over the weekend, just kind of telling the church to posture themselves, pray, and get ready, because like we're going to have opportunities to serve the community. The community's going to hurt more than it's hurting right now, and that was part of what I was thinking too. So I was trying to have a two-part application, and I felt like the second part got a little fuzzy. But pray that you'd have that wonder, and then pray that God would really get you ready. Like, this is a time of preparation right now. God's giving us, we think it's a time, oh, this is weird, I'm at home, but it's actually a time of getting ready to serve in more significant ways, I think. So.
Yeah, and I thought you touched on chapter 2 there for a moment in the sermon, just referring us, really, by reading that, you go back to, we're praying because of what God has done, not because of what we can gain from praying. And so the motivation, helps us see that, no, it's not about us forcing ourselves to do something. It's about recognizing we have this incredible privilege because God did this for us, the outsiders. He brought us in.
Yeah.
What do you think are some ways right now with the current state of affairs in the pandemic, the shelter in place, mostly staying at home? How can you include outsiders in that? What do you guys think?
Well, just this morning I was thinking of some folks that I know whose business is dependent upon people being in contact with them. I know they can't work now, and I'm thinking I ought to call them up and say, hey, I'm praying for you guys, because I know I'm just halted, and I don't know what's going to happen, but how can we help you? What can I pray for? So I think we can contact people that we know like that and let them know that they're being prayed for.
Yeah, man, it feels so abstract to me right now because the community hasn't been hit hard, but I'm literally just trying to research, trying to look for ways and look for ideas. I've been gardening which sounds totally conspiracy theory and apocalyptic. But I have just thought, okay, what can I practically do to posture my home base to be more lean, mean, and self-sufficient? It's like, okay, well, might be nice to have some squash and zucchini in a couple of months.
Some chickens. Y'all need to get your chicken game up.
I need chickens, man. Yeah. Anybody got extra chickens? I'm looking at the
I'm not
restream.
I'm not trying to give any chickens away. I don't think Chris is trying to give any chickens away right now either.
Yep.
Diane's trying to give away chocolate chip cookies this morning.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Can chickens live with your vegetables, or do they attack your vegetable garden?
I'd imagine they
they'll
eat
eat it.
them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. Where?
So Jennifer Riley says, letting elderly neighbors know you are there to pick groceries up or serve them.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah. And Joe and Elise Witt have ducks. Yeah. Wait, do ducks lay eggs? You can have two.
Yes, ducks.
Do they lay eggs?
Yes, ducks lay.
Or do they just cause problems?
Yes, ducks lay eggs. Yes.
Huh. Weird. I had no idea.
Okay.
Are duck eggs good? Do they taste weird?
People eat them.
They're saying I can have two ducks or two eggs. That's the question.
Well, their ducks don't lay eggs yet. I don't think so.
No.
Sorry. Any other ways you can help your neighbor? Maybe you can help your neighbor by giving them eggs if you have eggs. That you could include outsiders, though. So, I mean, I know helping our neighbor and including outsiders can be similar, and a lot of times some of the same things. But I mean, more including the outsider in like, it used to be. We would encourage people like in everything you do, in your job, getting a haircut, going to the grocery store, try and see the same people, talk to the same people, share the gospel, include them in that. We would normally encourage people in that. Are there ways that you guys think that people can do that type of thing still?
Well, when Dave was talking, I just had the thought, talking about people are going to be hurting, and I was thinking one step farther of that, the old saying, hurt people, and so not only as this gets kind of crazy or possibly, or basically there's a tendency when things go bad for people to cave in upon themselves and become more selfish, and maybe we see that somewhat in the purchasing habits of some people, I don't know, but I think just a call to even extra kindness, and to remember that that outsider doesn't just mean distance, like, oh, I got to go across the street now, but it can actually also mean enemy, and that that the people, we as Christians are called to look beyond ourselves, even when we're most tempted to scrap and fight and scrape together what we can, and then we also should be ready to not be surprised when people who don't have Christ in them are going to actually hurt us in a certain way, either just emotionally or, they just become completely selfish. We should be ready to just put in that extra effort of grace to them, I think. So whether that's online interactions or in-person interactions, maybe even just driving. I've noticed people are driving worse, even though there's less of them on the road. It's like, what? It's like, I got to get to where I'm going faster and forget all you people, So I just think that general concept of being ready for people to cave in upon themselves and see that as a moment for compassion will be really important.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, the Christian notion of praying for your enemies, blessing your enemies, that's a hard one.
And again, that's still very abstract, I know, but I do think the mindset's important. So when there is a moment of, oh, I literally can do this one specific thing or say this one thing. And also, I do think we're online so much, it's going to become silly and trite to keep sharing the church service on your wall or sharing hope. But people are sharing the news everywhere and just continuing to be salt and light, or sprinkle your conversations with hope, with specifically Christian hope, is probably a good habit.
Yeah, Jennifer says the lost are feeling panicked. We should help comfort those who are fearful, pray for them, continue to smile, and greet others. She's getting messages from non-believers. It's a perfect time to show them our hope is not in grocery stores or food or good health, but in Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's really
Yeah.
good.
Amen. That's really good.
Good work, team. Be the church, right?
Yeah.
It looks different than I just keep having this, I guess, little phrase in my head of like, embrace the day, like Christian, embrace the day. Like, we got to figure out what it means to be the church today. It's different, but what is it? How is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Point
Yeah,
two?
I just read a book
Sorry,
that I would recommend for those of you that are at home, trying new ebooks or Audible books. But it's called The Reappearing Church by Mark Sayers. It's a podcast guy I've recommended several times. He has a podcast called This Cultural Moment. But he's the one that he talks a lot about renewal movements and how renewal has happened in the past. And there was a quote going around online about how, if something kind of rocked our current world, people might be more open to the gospel. And he had a quote specifically about, something happened like the Spanish flu in the 19-teens. And so his book is really helpful, just thinking that through, like how can the church be postured and ready to respond with grace even when things get crazy in society.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember some of his conclusions, or would that spoil the book?
Man,
People should go get it.
It was still big idea. He was doing a lot more looking back at how this has happened in the past. So that might, spur ideas. Some of the stuff that we talked about when we first started, you'd found some quotes about, Luther taking common precautions, but still caring for people during the play, like that kind of even-handedness of, we're not going to go out and kill ourselves in one fell swoop, but we are going to have a certain level of fearlessness where we will serve people and help people. And, so that I think balanced Christian life of take precautions and serve people and pray for outsiders and be available. So I think we're still confused in the specifics because we don't see a need in front of us. But I think praying, Lord, help me see the needs and then respond is probably the best posture right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole thing too. We're talking through, just not to skip over the obvious thing in front of us, is that prayer actually is an
That's
action.
a thing.
Yeah, a method.
Yeah, I mean,
doing
really,
something.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it does feel it's often in your head like a non-thing. Like, oh yeah, I'll pray for you is the cop out. But when you're stuck inside your homes and God is not stuck inside your home, prayer is a big deal.
That's a really good point.
I usually, when we podcast, have like paper and a pen, and I write things down and I take notes, and I don't have any of that here. I need to go get all that stuff from the office still.
No pens.
So I'm gonna text myself a note so I don't lose it.
Perfect.
Well, you guys want to move to point two? We haven't done that yet, have we?
Sure.
Nope, let's do it.
Okay. Point number 2 is for whom we pray, and that is every tribe. And I started talking before I sent the note, and now I lost the note. Is not stuck inside your home. Great quality podcast content. So, point number 2, for whom we pray, every tribe, and this kind of just builds on the theme of the outsider, right? The outsider is the every tribe, really. And you're talking about, well, I guess this is the picture of the wildflowers. Here's a fun insider thing that some of you may have noticed and some of you may not have. When this slide popped up on the screen, the chroma key got all the purple flowers out, and so you could still see Dave moving a little bit in the background.
I saw that. That was so
Is
weird.
that what that was?
Yeah.
We wondered what was happening.
It was funny because it mostly looked normal, and it almost looked like maybe it was a GIF and the flowers were moving or something. It took me a second to figure out what was happening. But you talked about all the flowers because of, I guess, the large variety and the difference in, it being every tribe and not just one type of people. You want to talk a little bit more about flowers?
Yeah, I mean, I think struck me, for one thing, just God invented biodiversity. That's his plan. Like when you walk outside and look at creation, God likes all these different varieties, and it's a good and beautiful thing. And then that word and that concept is applied to the church. So the manifold wisdom of the church is the diverse or many-colored wisdom of God is displayed in the church to the angels, to the powers. Could be angels and demons. It kind of depends on your translation, but spiritual beings are seeing and kind of amazed at what God is doing in this diverse, manifold, many-colored display of God's people, being one people of many. So
A multi-tribe, conglomerate.
multi-tribe, multi-ethnic. Yeah, every place Gentile appears in the ESV text, it's the word ethnos or ethne, which is, depending on your translation, it can be as broad as nation or as narrow as tribe.
I love the idea that you spoke about. It turns us into servants who are serving God by spreading the good news. It's just there are so many different ways to do that that we don't have to be tied to what we often see as one map. This is how there's we tend to think that you have to do this thing this way or it isn't really spreading the good news. But as servants, we do all kinds of things in serving God, serving other people, and it allows us to share the good news in little fragments.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of picks up the connection there too, of the one body, many parts, like God's church. It's not just multi-ethnic or multi-tribe, but it's also multi-gift, right? Like we have different kinds of serving that we do.
Right.
Yeah, and I think tying that image to the body too, like the idea that without other parts of the body, we're not whole and we're not the same and we don't function as well. I think that's probably part of a little bit of what we're feeling too when we're just gathered on Sundays with just us. It doesn't feel like the whole body. I really do think the thing that you thought of after church, Chris, really did help me feel that closeness a little better. Obviously in the moment, like I do with all of our live things, I feel like it was horrible and didn't go over well and whatever. But actually, I went back and watched it, and I was like, man, this was really cool. So good work on that, Chris. I just thought it helped us stay more like a tribe. It felt more like a tribe.
Yeah, there's a beauty. I've thought about this a lot. I'm an Enneagram 4, if you guys wonder about that. So I wonder about myself a whole lot. You're welcome, Joey.
And he feels things.
I feel things, and I wonder about myself way too much. But I see this temptation of either writing off your own, what you bring to the body, either writing that off, or the other side of trying to get everyone else to think like you do or act like you do in a church setting. We see that a lot, and so I think it's fun to see the multicoloredness, not just ethnicity, although for sure that, but also strengths and just things that make you come alive, and that is the way God works through you, can work through you, and can speak to you also. And so I've said it before, but I love to think of us all as different tuning forks. So a tuning fork you can have a different note, and it will vibrate at that note. So when you play an A, it will vibrate at that frequency. And so I feel like that's so much how humans are wired, but we're not aware of it very much. We think either everyone's the same as me or everyone's different than me and I need to be quiet. And so we just need all of it. The beautiful mess. It feels like a mess sometimes, but so much beauty comes out of it.
Amen.
Like it. So what do you think? Well, bad question. I'll take it back.
Don't say it. All
right, how about application stuff? It's so weird doing this not in the same room and not feeling like we're all together and doing it over Skype, but I love it. Some of your application was, the church corporately, we give 10% mostly to global faraway missions. When we send our trips, we don't often do super local trips. I guess Backyard Bible Clubs would maybe count as a super local trip. But we, we go to Jordan and support our missionaries in that region. We go to Guatemala and support our missionaries in that region. So kind of the corporate application. You want to talk about some of the personal applications? How do you guys think that works personally?
Well, I think to add to that, because we do support those global outreach folks out there, I think we could also get on their newsletters so that we know how to pray for the things they are working with, the people they are working with, and that would keep us better informed, and it would encourage them. So that's another thing we can do corporately and personally.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, corporately we do that. We do that. We have, the staff gets everyone's letters and stuff. So yeah, personally for sure, get on. I guess, do we have a list of who and how people can get on their things? Is that accessible?
We haven't done it in a while, actually, since the church plant. We need to rework that. But we were kind of doing like a mission partner of the month kind of thing. So we do that seasonally. A lot of times we're reacting to our partners' requests, so they'll come in town and say, "Hey, I'm coming in town. Can we do a lunch?" And we'll do a lunch. So that's how a lot of that happens too.
Cool. Some of it's hard because we can't really put it out on our website or something, right? For some.
Yeah. So there's always a lag, and it's always a little hard because we communicate different facts about different partners. There's different levels of transparency about what we can say publicly.
But that is definitely a good way to stay connected and know what they need and how you can be praying for them. I like that, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay, corporate or personal applications.
Yeah. Well, that's a personal one, right? Personally, we can pray for.
For sure.
Our peeps. I think just going down the mental exercise of what's a people group that I've written off and beginning a discipline of praying for that group. Is it a social group or a sin group or a cultural group or a religious group that I just think is beyond the gospel, and beginning to pray for that group. I think it's a good discipline of kind of like asking God to surprise us and to move.
Yeah. That made me think too that there's just a temptation within those situations to just wholesale write off anything that feels culturally like that group that you have trouble loving. And so there's surely huge benefit in studying, especially what they love. If you just don't understand it, studying it and understanding and believing, as I do, that there's God is the owner of all goodness, and so something under the hood, this core goodness that they're tapping into, whether it's been twisted or not later on. We do the same thing. Whatever your home culture is, we twist goodness as well. But trying to dig deeper below the surface of the expression to find the root of what is good and what they love, and when you can find that, I think you can really start to love better. And appreciate, because I do think a lot of our problems are either like personality or style or I'm thinking of like a lot of Americans have problems with maybe people in the Middle East with all the discussions of terrorism and things like that, and so whether that's a cultural thing, but yeah, study their habits and their culture and find this goodness that you can resonate with, that can help you to love and appreciate them as people more.
Yeah. Well, and back to Joey mentioned earlier, we do short-term trips. So going on a short-term trip, that is part of that benefit, is expanding your horizon and seeing what God is doing across cultural boundaries.
Yeah, that's one of the really cool things about the Jordan trip is, in general, it's a lot of missionaries coming together. And so we're meeting people from all over the world, come to one part of the world, and they're all serving in different countries in that part of the world, and then they come together for a meeting. And so it's all these people from all these tribes and tongues and nations coming together to serve people in a certain location that's pretty unreached. So it's just really cool to get to spend time with those people and hear their stories and see what God's doing. And I probably wouldn't do it justice, but they described it as like, there's the whole church. If it's a big funnel, like a double-sided funnel, there's, the whole church pouring in resources and time and effort and prayers into this one little small spot where they are, and then they get to disperse it. So they're like right in the funnel of receiving everything the church is giving and then dispersing everything church is giving. It's really cool. So obviously we're still up in the air with Jordan this year because of travel restrictions and everything. We're hoping and praying that it can still happen, but it will be sad for me if that doesn't happen, because it's a really cool experience.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up one thing too that maybe even closer to home immediately for folks is people of different tribes of opinion. So any thoughts on that? Because I guess I see, like Dave, you were talking about this cultural moment. What I see is I can taste from 100 people online saying, I can taste from 100 miles away what tribe you're from politically, or what tribe you're from socioeconomically, whatever it is, and I'm going to run away from it or shut you off. Or what, do you have any practices that you employ to not just do that, or you encourage people to do?
Well, I mean, I think the things everything we've already discussed applies to that category. So, like, to use an example, you could say politically, if you're convinced that your politics are, stem from a biblical worldview, going through the exercise of getting to know, empathetically listen to, and respect people with the bad view, or whatever you think is the wrong view, like getting to know those people, building genuine relationships. It doesn't mean give up all your views. It means going through the exercise of listening, honoring, respecting. Is there any good in it? At the end of the day, you might still say, I still think this, and I still think they're wrong, and I would want to convince them. But there's been some going through the exercises of trying to get to know and understand people from their perspective. And again, prayer is a real thing. So praying for people.
Yeah, and I guess I would also encourage people, different people are going to have different bandwidths for that and different strengths and weaknesses. So if that may not be your gifting to engage lovingly online. So that's okay if you say, I just need to limit that. But I do think we need to watch out to just wholesale write off people in our hearts too. So.
Well, and I think remembering the difference between being a Christian and then trying to work out your Christian worldview. So like your views of medicine, or your views of politics, or your views of culture or art, those should be built on a biblical foundation. But people can build a different biblical worldview than you and still love Jesus, right? They could be wrong, or you could be wrong, and y'all can still both love Jesus. And so just, people knowing that, having a humility about that, like, oh, okay, one of us could be wrong, or maybe we're both halfway right. But that there's a difference between loving Jesus and trusting in him and your secondary worked out views of everything in the world.
It's good. Point 3?
Point 3.
Yep. All right, let's do it. Point 3. Your point 3 was what we pray, supernatural strength. And this one, your picture was roots growing deep. Well, not the roots growing deep, but tree with big, thick, hardy roots. And you were talking about growing deep and reaching out, not reaching out, growing deep. The first part was reaching out. Sorry, I lost my question because I said something silly. Okay, point 3.
I've got a text question.
Go ahead.
I've got a text question. I was in and out because we were scrambling around the room with Facebook and things, so you may have touched about this, but the whole, I'm just curious about I've always wondered about every family in heaven on earth is named for the Father. What Can you unpack that a little bit? Did you just talk about what that means?
I did. So I said, so there's the linguistic answer, and then there's the like common sense answer. So the common sense answer is what I think I gave, which is God invented families to help us understand Him, not the other way around. It's not like God walks into this world and we've got families. He's like, oh, okay, I'll use that to try to talk to these people. Yeah. So it's like, no, he is fatherhood as it should be, and
Yes.
belonging to Him is family. He creates us, and we're some kind of shadow of that, in what we know, and so the degree to which we, as fathers, feel guilty because we don't measure up, or as sons feel distant from our earthly father, to the degree that we live in a fractured and broken world, that's because we have this echo hardwired into us as being built, in the image of God. We kind of know what it's supposed to be, and everything falls short of that. So, so I addressed it from that level. Also, linguistically, the words, it's a play on words. Family and father is the same Greek root in Greek.
That's awesome. I was gonna say on the side, one of my favorite mind journeys on that end is thinking about, like you said, God didn't just find things that were already here and make them a metaphor for Him. He created them. So like reading the Psalms, or it's like the Psalm about this God coming out, rising like the sun and the dawn, and it's like, oh, that's a great metaphor, but it's like God knew ahead of time He was making the sun in the way that would make it a metaphor for, just around and around and around. So that's a beautiful thing when you're anybody writing poetry or writing songs. It's like, yep, God knew you were going to write that song. That's why He made it that way. It just kind of blows your mind, the bigness of God in those ways. But yeah, that family thing that's gorgeous. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Good work, God. Well done.
He did good.
Good work. He chose you on His team. You could be part of that good work. Other thoughts for point 3, prior application? You talked about the strength is a strength in Jesus, that even during crazy times you can have supernatural peace, etc.
Well, I like that Dave tied the suffering that Paul was going through to the praying, that it was part of his service in his suffering to comfort others and to pray for them, which he says again in 1 Corinthians and in the first chapter in verse 3, says, and so we are going to suffer, and we are going to receive comfort in that in one way or another. And so that builds up in us the ability to take that and go, yes, God comforts me, so I can comfort you. I can pray for you. So I really thought that helped a lot, because we feel sometimes like in suffering, all we do is pray about our own condition, our own circumstance, and to pray for others.
Yeah, I think knowing that Jesus, our suffering, is really important as modern Christians, because we can get confused. There's a I don't know I can't remember the word for it. Syncretism, I guess, is the missionary word for it, where you mix Christian faith with the local tribal belief. And so local tribal belief as modern Americans is that suffering should be avoided at all costs. And there's again, like, well, of course you don't want to suffer on purpose, but God uses our suffering. He really does use it to intercede for others. I was just kind of trying to connect the dots. It's kind of like it's connected, our suffering and our prayers for outsiders are connected.
And I guess your application for this point, that kind of is what it was. It was love God and love others. Basically, you basically went to the greatest commandment, right? Which makes complete sense inside of a sermon about praying for others, loving the outsiders. It's for every tribe. So I think that's where you went. Am I accurate in saying that you kind of went back to the greatest commandment in that?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was trying show that our strength and our roots in Him then enables us to serve others and to be about outsiders, because we feel strong, we feel included. We remember what it was like to be an outsider like Paul, but we know we've been included and made insiders. So our roots are connected to Christ. That gives us the strength then to serve others.
Other thoughts, ideas?
Well, and the phrase that Paul uses to give people that supernatural, that inner, because when we're in suffering, we feel really weak. And so, I can see why he would connect those two things together distantly, but still we need that inner strength to deal with our own weakness. And I just thought it was really, I made a list, essential prayer for all people, right? The essential prayers in this, we ought to pray for all those outsiders, for that inner strength, for roots to grow deep in God's love, and to understand the vastness of God's love, the love of Christ. And it makes it an easier thing to say, because we always think of all these things we might pray for, but those are three things that are essential to anybody that's outside of Christ, that is in a different tribe, in a different nation, things that we can pray for them, and people that we have written off.
That's good. That's good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have this thought of we're getting a chance now to practice like a different form of like a supernatural faith. I think so often when everything is good, we can fall into this habit of, I guess I was thinking calling it like self-absorbed faith, that my view of God's goodness is completely defined by how I'm feeling, and so this direct blessing is the definition of God's character, and then when you start to feel like, oh, everything's not okay, so if you're still having self-absorbed faith, you're thinking if everything starts to be bad, God is starting to be bad, right? But what we're getting to practice right now is the not natural thing. It's not just a instinctive reaction of good things happen to me, God is good. Bad things happen to me, God is bad. But instead saying, even when bad things happen to me, God remains good. And therefore, the circumstances don't define who God is. And I can begin to pray thankful prayers even when things are bad. And I can begin to pray for others even when I feel most closely my own suffering. I can pray, go beyond that to the suffering of others. That doesn't mean I stop praying for my own suffering, but it does mean I cannot be self-absorbed in my faith. So
That's good.
Anything else?
Word.
You want to talk about?
Word.
You want to talk about anything from Sunday? Any last minute things? I felt, or in the past, I've always felt a pressure to end us right about 1 hour, which is about right where we're at right now. But after yesterday and everyone saying, we got nothing else to do, just stay on, we'll listen to you forever, I guess I can give us a little more leeway. Is there anything else, y'all? Shout outs you want to make? Muffins? Anything like that?
Yes. Dog. We had... Oh, hi dog.
She's alive. She's just resting.
We had a glorious moment last night after I got home from church and took a nap and then got up, and the kids know that I have this stash of a million Nerf bullets up in the closet that I ordered for some reason a million years ago on Amazon. So I got on Pandora and turned on epic soundtrack music. And so it was just this huge, crazy, spooky music. And we ran around the house and had an insane Nerf battle. And it was quite glorious. Henry's the youngest, and he got to be invincible, which made him very happy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. No one could shoot Henry. And the house is kind of wrecked because we're there all the time. And but there were great bunkers because of that. So like laundry baskets are a great thing to hide behind.
Laundry bunkers.
Laundry bunkers. So.
Yes. Well, I think next time you should podcast from a laundry bunker. Tell you all about that.
From the trenches of the quarantine.
Perfect.
Yes. Great. Cool. Anything else? Well, if not, we'll talk to y'all later.
Yeah.
I'm going to end the episode. Can we end it? Well,
All
thanks
right,
for
man.
tuning in.
Good to see your lovely
Nope.
faces.
Okay, we'll try it again. You don't get to hang up, even though I'm ending the stream. We still have to talk for a second.
Okay.
Well, thanks for tuning in. This has been Sunday Recap, the weekly edition of the Grace Bible Church podcast. Hey, we want your questions about the sermon. We want your comments. Send them to podcast@bgrace.org or go to bgrace.org/podcast and submit some questions about the sermon, comments about the sermon. We want to answer them. We did start a new email address. That's prayer@bgrace.org. If you have anything that you need or anything you need prayer for, especially in this time, we want to pray for you. We want to reach out to you. We also have a special, I don't have this written down, so a special survey you can fill out that will help us know what ways we can be helping you out or reaching out to you. And that's at bgrace.org/check-in.
All one word, no dash. Check in.
All one word. That's CHECKIN. bgrace.org/check-in. Until next week, this has been Sunday Recap.